everybody. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining us. It's Tim. I'm back again with another Seagate Wines tutorial video. And today I brought my better half, the special guest of the day. This is Rebecca. She is a sommelier here at Seagate Wines, and she is responsible for some of our sourcing and the basically the direction of wines that we take. And we also she also is the brainchild behind our own label and the making of the Seagate Wines label that we have with the 3 orange labels that you get to try all the time when you come to the restaurant at Flying Fish. Today we are going to talk to you about the reason why we started doing this. So when we started out our company, we figured that we needed to figure out a way to increase the quality of what was available locally, but also reducing the price point, because the Bahamas is notoriously expensive for quality wines. And so with a bit of research and some good hard exploring, we started with Spain. And so today we're going to do our intro to Spain. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of the key areas, the DOs that we really like. There's a lot of them. There's 54 total DOs in Spain. We're not going to talk about all 54, but we are going to just sort of give you a quick run through, and then the different grape varieties that are unique to each of these DOs and why they are unique to those places, and why we like them so much. So first off, let's start with the map of Spain.
Hello everybody, I'm Rebecca, as Tim said, the other half of Seagate Wines, and we've had the opportunity to tour across some countries, trying some wine and meeting some cool wine people, and we thought that we would share some stories of where we've gone and who we've met that sort of started our Seagate wine journey. Our first sort of trip around together was in Spain. We fell in love with the food and the wine, as well as the diversity that the wine and food have in Spain, and good value for dollar wines, which we thought that we would start Seagate with, so that we could bring some great wines to the Bahamas. We had the opportunity to travel along a lot of miles and visit a lot of the DOs, which stands for denomination of origin, which just means it's an area that's been marked for a certain grape variety and type of wine. So the one area that most people know about would be Rioja. That's mid-Spain, nice, big, aged reds. They also have some aged whites. Just south of there would be Ribera del Duero. Also have Navarra, Humila, there's Toro, there's Monsant, there's Priorat, and each of these areas have a grape variety that are associated with the area. Same as for whites, we've got one of our favorites, which is Rueda, which is sort of desert Spain, and then quite on the contrary, northwest would be Galicia, that has Rias Baixas in it, just along the border of Portugal. And we also have Monterrey, which is in the Rias Baixas area. We've got Jerez, which is a whole other denomination and style of wine for sherry. And where else am I missing?
Staying in Galicia, we still have like Valdoras, which is known specifically for its Godeo. And one of our favorites is Bierzo, which is a red wine denomination inside a white wine region, which is kind of interesting, and we'll get to that later.
So some of the grape varieties in some of these white areas, we have Albarino, which is definitely a grape variety that we go to for the style of food that we have here in the Bahamas. They also have a a few lesser known, I shouldn't say unknown, lesser known grape varieties there, which would be Caño Blanco, Lureira, Treixadora, there's Godeo. And then when you go further south, we've got the Verdejo, which is the big grape variety for tapas wine, as well as sort of the middle desert of Spain for the tapas culture, which we're probably going to have a glass of.
Which is that right there. When you're talking about tapas and the wine and food culture of Spain, it comes back to one specific place, and that is it's not a small town. It feels like a small town, but it is actually a city of almost 500,000 people called Valladolid. And Valladolid is a city that is right in the center of multiple wine regions. So Rueda is less than 5 miles away, and then less than a 40-minute drive to the east would be Ribera del Duero, and then less than an hour and a half north would be Rioja. So you're right in the center of where all of the most famous of the wines of Spain come from, and their tapas culture reflects that. So it's very much small bites with glasses of wine, and it's a very convivial spirit. This wine actually that we're drinking right now is called Colagon, and it comes from Palacio de Bornos. Some of you may know the wine. We've already talked about it many times. It is one of our most popular white wines. It is made from the Verdejo grape, but it also has some Viura. Now, Viura is known by different names depending on where you are in Spain. In most of Spain, it is Viura. So for white Rioja, it is also known as Viura. But if you go to the east, closer to Barcelona, then the name changes and it becomes Macabeo. And Macabeo is one of the primary grapes in Cava, which is the sparkling wine of Spain. And that region basically is around the Barcelona area. Penedès basically is one of the major regions where you go to get good cava. In fact, outside of that region in Catalonia, you have to have a very special government license that has allowed you to create something with a cava label on it, and it would be a grandfather clause because you've already been making it for a very, very long time. There is one producer that we've actually been to called Finca Torremelanos, and they have the oldest cava production house in Spain, and it is actually it's in Ribera del Duero. So, which is kind of an interesting little fact there.
They got the loophole.
They got the loophole. So yeah, let's just do a quick little run through. So let's start with Rioja, because everybody knows Rioja, right? Rioja, it's broken down into 3 different areas. Rioja Alta, which is obviously the top part, Rioja Bajo, and Altavesa. These are the 3 different regions of Rioja. And they all produce different styles of wine. Some are a little heavier, some are a little bit lighter, some are, are a little bit more earthy. But the one thing that I find in Rioja that is the same in all of them is that earthiness.
The terroir.
It is very, very much a terroir-driven wine. When you compare Rioja to its next door neighbor, Ribera del Duero is much more about fruit. It is a big wine, a juicy wine.
With the same grape variety.
Same grape variety. So the grape variety for both of these regions is Tempranillo, and there is no blending in most of those wines. They're almost all exclusively Tempranillo. There are some winemakers, and one of them has become one of our go-to guys in Spain. He's an absolute legend of Rioja. His name is Basilio Izquierdo. And we were introduced to him by a mutual friend, and we ended up spending a wonderful day hanging out with him in Rioja, tasting really cool wines, experimental wines. And he's got a very small little boutique winery where he does a lot of experimentation using different grapes that are not necessarily big grapes from Rioja, like Garnacha, or as the French call it, Grenache, and he does extraordinary versions of them. And one of my favorites was Graciano. And Graciano is usually a blending grape that they'll use in a lot of different regions, like Navarra uses Graciano a lot. It is a warm weather grape. Navarra is very hot. And they'll blend Graciano. In fact, we have one in our list. The Signorio de Saria, which is another offshoot of the Bornos company, their Cabernet Crianza uses Cabernet Sauvignon, but it also blends it with Tempranillo and Graciano to give it a real Spanish flair. And it's also another one of our big famous wines that people are really enjoying because of the price point and the quality that you get at that price point.
I think something important to mention about the experimental grapes in the denominations, and that goes with any denomination in France, in Italy, in America, is that you have rules that you need to follow to produce a wine with a label that says Rioja or Ribera del Duero or Napa or Russian River, that you have to follow certain sets of rules. And if you choose to make a wine that doesn't come within those sets of rules, you can't put the denomination name on it.
Right. So when you look at Basilio's labels, and we'll show you a picture of one during this. They do not have the Rioja label on them. They're not there. He is probably, if not the most famous, he's one of the 3 most famous winemakers in Rioja, if not in all of Spain, because of his work that he did with Marquis de Riscal, where he was there for very, very many years before he left to start making his own boutique wines. Now, everybody knows Marquis de Riscal. It is the most famous of all Riojas all around the world. It's got a white label with gold writing, and the whole bottle is encaged in like a gold wire mesh. Everybody knows it. You see it everywhere. We've been there, and we'll show you this picture.
And do you know why the cage is there?
Why is the cage there?
It was originally put there so that there wouldn't be any counterfeit wines. So they didn't want anyone making wines that were Rioja denominations that weren't actually within the rules.
There you have it. See, these are very informative videos. So the one thing that we have learned about spending time in a winery that's as big as Marquis de Riscal, I mean, they produce over 11 million bottles annually. If you can imagine just how much wine that actually is, it's an extraordinary production facility. When you compare that to Basilio, who is making maybe 12,000 bottles total in his basement, the quality level between the two is unbelievably different. You cannot justify spending enormous amounts of money on wines that have very little quality control, because you just can't do it. There's too many. You're making 11 million bottles of the same wine versus this gentleman on this side, who literally is hands putting labels on his bottles, and he's so in tune with it and so in touch with it. So we really have learned to really get into these smaller wineries. I mean,
feel the passion and the love and the work. Yeah.
And I think Bornos is it skirts both of them. So Bornos is a fairly large production facility.
And our first stop in Spain.
It was our very, very first winery visit. But it's also incredible attention to detail. So technologically, they're very, very much advanced from most of their competitors in that region. I think they offer the best value for dollar wine and white wine in the region there. We have a lot of their products on our wine list, and you can go on the website and you can check them all out. But there's so much opportunity to explore around not just what you know, but into things that you don't know. Places like Monterrey in Galicia. Monterrey produces, let's grab one of these. So this is Godello. Now Godello is a distant cousin relative grape to Chenin Blanc. And a lot of people know what Chenin Blanc is. It's one of the big grapes of France. It's also an enormous grape in South Africa. But Godello, for people who like unoaked Chardonnays or you like Chenin Blanc, this is your go-to grape, and it's far cheaper to get it from Spain than it is to get it from France. So one of our great ones there. Jumping back to, let's jump into Rias Baixas for a bit. Rias Baixas is almost like another country. It, having traveled, almost 4,000 miles around Spain, there's nothing else anywhere that we've seen that comes even remotely close to being like Galicia. Just to get there, you have to cross over a whole mountain range, and once you come down on the other side, you feel like you've gone to a completely different place. Spain is a very hot country. It can see temperatures well into the 110s, hundreds and 120s in the summertime. That's in the up to 50 Celsius for those of you who are Celsius people. Hottest temperature ever recorded, in fact we were actually there, was in Cordoba, which is about an hour south of Madrid. 52 Celsius recorded at their airport there on the day that we happened to be there. And you feel like you're melting.
And you drive into Rias Baixas.
But Galicia is so different and very cold and very wet. So we'll show you a couple of pictures here of how different the style of growing the vines is, because they need to make sure that these vines can stay dry. So they elevate them very, very high off the ground and let the grapes hang down so the wind can go through what they have formed. They form tunnels of vines, and then the grapes are dried by the continuous breeze that's coming off the Atlantic. Otherwise, they have huge problems with rot and disease and mold. So that makes Galicia a very interesting destination on its own. Rias Baixas is broken down into 5 different subzones. Most of the stuff that we get from, most of the stuff that most people would know, if you're into Albarino, comes from the Salnés Valley. It's the principal region of Rias Baixas. Those where all of your really big name manufacturers are going to be, places like Martin Kodath, or for example, Paco and Lola, which everyone recognizes as the polka dot bottle. These are all from the Salnés Valley. And then you have some small producers as well. This is from Benito Santos. We had lunch, and we can show you the picture. We had lunch with the entire team from Benito Santos, and the whole party, including the 2 of us, was 5 people.
We were 5.
So that is how small this company is, but they make extraordinary wines, really, really extraordinary wines. We'll show you a picture right now of some of the vines from Benito Santos. These vines are over 100 years old. And then we can compare it to this picture of Martin Kodath. And Martin Kodath is a cooperative with over 500 owners, basically. And this vineyard is from the CEO of the company. So you can see the difference in the style and just the age and kind of the amount of money that is spent in keeping these up. When you have only 3 people that work for this winery and 1,000 or 2,000 people that work for this winery, you can see the attention to detail is a little bit higher on the right side because they can afford it, but doesn't make better wine.
The technical term for how they grow their grapes is called canopy management. How you prune your grapes, your grapevines, how you pick them, how you irrigate them, how you have the trellis system like they do in Rias Baixas versus short vines in Rueda. That's called canopy management.
Right.
So shall we look at some pictures of canopy management?
Yeah, we can show you a couple of these pictures of canopy management, and we're going to contrast them. So first we'll show these pictures of Rias Baixas and how they train these vines. Then I'm going to show you a picture from the same DO, but 3.5 hours south in the Rosal sub-region of Rias Baixas, which is far warmer, far drier. It's right on the border of Portugal along the Minho River, and they produce some of our favorite wines in our portfolio. Some of you may have tried the Valmenor Albarino. Also, some really unique wines. Wines like this. This is called Castagnel. It is the only known Castagnel in the world. It's a resuscitated ancient grape variety that they found strains of in their vineyards, and they brought it back to life after being thought to be extinct for nearly 300 years. So it's really interesting, really cool stuff. And then now we can take a picture of the desert parts of Spain. So Rioja, Ribera del Duero, Rueda. Most of these regions don't ever let their vines get more than 18 inches from the ground. And it's because of a lack of water. So you have these distinct climate in each region that's making you change the way you do your canopy management. And then here's the next one. This is from the Priorat, which is super steep slate soil on the side of a mountain where they produce, instead of long rows of vines, they produce these little clustered bushes of vines that make really interesting concentrated fruit, and it's almost always exclusively Grenache in Priorat. Some of the most expensive wines in the world actually are coming out of the Priorat.
Very limited space available there because, well, you can only go so far up.
Exactly. Yeah, it is extraordinarily mountainous, and the terrain is very, very difficult to manage. Now, here is a sommelier's tip. If you are in a restaurant and you're looking at the wine list and you think, you know what, I really want to try and I want a Priorat, because, hey, they're gorgeous. They're beautiful wines, absolutely spectacular. But they're very expensive. Does this wine list have any wines from the Montsant region? If they do, always buy the wine from Montsant, because it's the same wine from on the other side of the road, literally. Mm-hmm. It's divided by one road. So same soil, same terrain, same weather, same climate. It's just broken up because of the distinction of where the region split. Montsant can be had for like a third of the price of Priorat. And some of them are really, really, really beautiful. So that's a little bit of a sommelier's tip. So for us, let's go through some of our most important stops. If you're going to be doing a wine trip around Spain, these are the places that you absolutely have to hit. Number one, Rías Baixas. So you're going to start on the northwest of Spain, and the city of Pontevedra is where you're going to find the most wineries. They're all in that, a lot of them are all in that area there. The food is fantastic.
Seafood is amazing.
Absolutely extraordinary seafood. We were fortunate enough to be taken by the team at Paco and Lola out onto the water and actually go see where they're farming mussels and harvesting clams, and you know, the quality of the seafood is second to none anywhere in the world.
And very cold water.
Very cold water. Very cold water. So my next thing going from west to east would be Rueda. Rueda, again, that's why we drink it. It is one of our favorite wines, not just in Spain, but anywhere in the world. It's kind of our go-to as an everyday wine because of its cost.
And approachability.
Yeah.
It's easy, it's light, it goes with any food you try and put it with, pretty much.
Yeah, spectacular stuff.
Awesome price point.
Then from there, a quick shot north to Rioja. We're going from Rueda up to Rioja. Now, again, try to get into some of the little towns around Rioja. Haro is probably where the most famous of the Rioja wineries are, and definitely the most expensive. Wineries like Rioja Alta, they're all in that region, and they're the oldest of them all. La Guardia, that's where you can find our good friend Basilio, and he'll be happy to stop by and take you out to lunch, where he's an absolute legend. From Rioja, then to Ribera del Duero. Ribera del Duero is a little bit less populous. You don't really have the same amount of like towns where there's a lot of people and touristy things to do. I think possibly because it's so close to Valladolid, it doesn't really need to have all of those things. But there's a tiny little town called Penafiel. And inside the middle of that town is Castillo de easy for me to say, Castillo de Penafiel. It's the castle in the center of Penafiel. And it has been turned into the Museum of Wine for Spain. So you can go in there, spend the day, and just learn about all of the history behind winemaking in Spain. It's really fascinating. And it's only about 3 minutes away from one of our favorite wineries, Bodegas Resolte. Resolte is one of our favorite wineries in the world. We have pretty much their entire lineup, and they go from every price point, from $15 up to the Gran Resolte. This is just released a 2010, if you can imagine, 2010 just released. So you're getting such an incredibly premier product, and the prices are very good. It's already been aged for you, extremely high quality. 2010 is extraordinary vintage. And that wine is probably in the $80 to $85 range. So if you're looking for something special, I also have those for special gifts. I have them in 3-bottle cases that come in a wooden case that are really, really nice to give out as a gift. From Rioja, we go to Ribera del Duero. From Ribera del Duero, I think heading towards Barcelona, because you're going to want to stop in Barcelona if you're going to do this. Obviously, Penedès. Go to Penedès, try Cava. Get into trying some of these amazing sparkling wines from Spain. And they come in various degrees of quality, same as any other sparkling wine region. They tend to grade them in different grades. But they're all, from entry level all the way up to the most expensive ones, they're all very, very, very good. Again, it's all about value for your dollar when you're shopping in Spain. From Penedès, we drive south, and you end up in the Priorat. And no trip is complete unless you've gone through these ancient cities in the Priorat. They're surrounded by mountains. They haven't changed much in the last 200 years. The architecture is incredible. The food is amazing. The wines are incredible. It's a really great educational experience to go through the Priorat. And if you're ever headed in that direction, give us a call and we can get you a guide. And then no trip through Spain is complete until you go to Jerez and try the sherry. Drinking sherry in Jerez is a magical experience. It is the home of, obviously, the world famous Tío Pepe, but there are so many small boutique sherry producers in Jerez. It is absolutely a spectacular place to go. And if you're headed south, obviously, you go there before you head to the beach.
And that's home of the Andalusian dancing horses. Yeah, which was something you need to do.
It's a very cool. That's a very cool experience.
Non-wine related.
So I hope you guys had a good time today going through our little tour around Spain. If you have any more questions about Spain or wine or us or anything else, that you'd like to find out about, obviously send us a message here on the Facebook page or email us at info@seagatewines.com or go to our website at www.seagatewines.com and just check it out. There's all kinds of information there about us, about our producers, about our partners, and the shop is there as well where you can order wines online and have them delivered right to your home. So thank you guys all for hanging out with us today. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Cheers.